Okay, this is a reaction, another reaction from Feely from Germany. Did American stereotypes turn out to be wrong? Let's see what this all turns out to be. Please click like, share, and subscribe for Feely from Germany, as well as clicking right down there for me. I would really, really appreciate it, and get this thing going. And close to 200 subscribers. Want to get to 300 before too long, and move on up. But please click like, share, and subscribe for her as well as for me. I would appreciate it. But let's see what this is all about. Did American stereotypes turn out to be wrong?
What do Germans really think of Americans? And did those assumptions actually turn out to be true when I came here?
It makes you wonder what, because when I read some of the comments that have come through to my channel, my very small channel that I occasionally get comments on, you generally get the impression that Americans are not, the way Americans think they should be looked at and how they are actually looked at are two separate things. I'm not going to go too deep into it because I don't have a whole lot to go on. Or I have enough to go on, but not enough that I want to spread it out. But it is interesting what I've been, like when I said something about the bags, like these bags, which I basically made a comment. I don't know what the big deal is about the bags are, but I got someone who's a typical American doesn't know, come on. Okay. I don't, destroy the planet by plastic bags, but here, let's find out. Let's go on.
Hello, servus, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Feli. I'm originally from Munich, Germany, but I've been living here in Cincinnati, Ohio, on and off since 2016. I asked you guys on YouTube and Instagram what questions you've always wanted to ask a German, and it turns out that there are a lot of questions. In the last video of this mini-series, I talked about why we call Germany Deutschland and why our country has so many different names around the world. If you haven't seen that yet, you can just click up here to get to the whole Ask a German playlist. For today's question, I looked at the polls that you voted for on YouTube, and this one was extremely popular. Did you have any assumptions about the US before you came here that you later found were wrong? And the answer is nope. All of the stereotypes I had of the US were correct. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Well, it's nice to know we got that quick video. Have a good day, I guess. Thanks for watching. Please click like, share, and subscribe for Feely from Germany, as well as clicking down there for me, like for Scott Dover's Interesting World. It's been a great time. Have a good rest of your day.
Okay, no, obviously that was a joke. There definitely are things
Clearly.
that I found to be wrong after a while. And that was actually another very popular question about what the most typical stereotypes are that Germans have of Americans. And I think it makes sense to combine these questions and tell you guys about the stereotypes first, and then about which ones I found to be complete bullshit. Now this is actually a great transition because this is one of the prejudices that many Germans, and I think people in other parts of the world as well, have of Americans. That they don't speak any second languages, and if they do, that their language skills are rather limited. Some other
And the reason for that, look, we don't live, like I mentioned before, Germany has, France, Poland, I believe, Czech Republic, Austria, and Switzerland, and Netherlands, and Belgium. They have a whole bunch of different countries with different people speaking different languages around them versus the United States, where it only has Mexico to the south and Canada to the north, and most of Canada speak, with the exception of Montreal, speaks English. Most of Canada, Montreal speaks French. But there's really no reason to learn other languages in the United States for all intents and purposes.
other things on the list are that many Americans aren't very educated, especially about the rest of the world. You might even hear people say that Americans are stupid. Regarding
Yeah, I've done videos on that. Some of my videos are like, what's the dumbest thing that Americans ever said to you, about other things like not understanding it around the rest of the world, that they have the internet and things like that. So yeah.
Germany in particular, one stereotype is definitely that they don't even know where Germany is, that they don't know the difference between
I know where Germany is.
Austria and Australia, or that they think that the Berlin Wall is still up, or that Hitler is still alive. Then,
if Hitler had not killed himself in Eva Braun in the bunker in Berlin in 1945, then he was born in I believe, I want to say 1888, around there, late 1880s. He'd be dead by now. He'd be well dead by now. Even if he and look, if he had survived that and escaped somehow, look, he wasn't surrendering to the Russians. Okay, that was never going to happen. He was never going to surrender to the Soviets at all, and he certainly wasn't going to. If he was going to surrender to anybody, it would have been to the Western Allies. But nevertheless, that never happened. He didn't escape. He didn't make a way down to South America to start a Fourth Reich. None of that ever happened.
And of course, another stereotype is that Americans eat a lot of fast food, and that a lot of them are obese and drive through Walmart in those electric shopping cars. Another prejudice that I think especially people who've interacted with an American before have is that they're fake and superficial, especially the small talk and friend.
Wow, we are a bunch of little small. Look at us. I mean, how the hell did we get to where we are today with all those problems that she's naming there?
That's often called fake. And then, of course, that Americans are obsessed with guns and that they think that they live in the best country in the world and kind of look down on other countries.
I don't look down on other countries. I certainly don't look down on I love my country. I think it's the best country in the world. I do. But so if you're from Germany, you think it's the best country in the world, God bless you. There's plenty to like about Germany. I've been there. I've seen it. Okay, and I enjoyed my time there. I thought the people were great.
Now, to be completely honest with you guys, I do actually think that most of these points have some truth to them. Obviously, not all Americans are fat, eat McDonald's every day, and are uneducated about the rest of the world. But compared to what it's like in Germany, you can definitely see a difference there overall. But of course, that's when you generalize it. Not every American is the same, obviously. I mean, some of the fittest and smartest people in the world are Americans. If you'd like to hear some more detailed elaborations about what I think of some of these cliches, check out this podcast episode on understanding train station that Josh and I did a few weeks ago, because we actually talked about the different cliches about Americans and Germans and what we think of them as someone who's from the country versus someone who moved there as an expat. Link is up here and in the info box below. But one thing on the list that, for me, turned out to be wrong is the one about the superficial American small talk and the fake friendliness. Before I actually moved to the US for my exchange semester in 2016, I had been to the US a few times for a 2-week high school exchange when I was 16, and then twice for road trips with my family, where we went to a lot of different places in the US. Now, all of what I'm about to say is my personal experience. It could be completely different for other Germans, but the whole fake friendliness stereotype actually wasn't all that prevalent for me until I went to the US for that exchange and the vacations. That's when I started to think, okay, why are the waiters here constantly exaggerating like that? Like when they always say things like, oh my god, you're from Germany? That's so cool. I've been to Paris once and it was the time of my life.
Yeah, Paris and France and Germany does not. It's not in,
Well, good for you.
Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. I've been to Paris.
And it's not that exciting to be from Germany, so calm down. I actually found it really exhausting that people always wanted to have all of the small talk and ask you all these personal questions when we both knew we'd never see each other again anyway. I mean, they didn't really care about what my plans were for after high school or what my favorite food was. So why did they pretend that it was the most interesting thing in the world? I kind of preferred people to just be real and preferred silence.
A lot of that is not just being, it's just making small talk and having conversations and finding out what you plan to do, and then I get it. You're sitting there, and all of a sudden somebody's asking you for your life story, who you're never going to see again. It's just small talk. It's just a way to make conversation. Sometimes people, not everybody, Americans like this, but sometimes you get bored with certain situations. You just want to talk things out with a person, just find out things about them. It's just something that some Americans like to do. Not all Americans. I don't like to do that. I don't like to. You wouldn't find out what her plans are after high school and all that good stuff. My thoughts are just, and you have somebody like that. It's just have the conversation. Just give them what they want to hear, and then move on. That's all it is.
Or even a blunt, unfriendly tone over fake interest and over-the-top friendliness. I know all of this sounds kind of harsh, but that's what I felt like at the time, and I know it's what a lot of other Germans think as well. By the end of the vacation, I was honestly glad to be done with all the small talk and pretending to be just as friendly and interested as the person I was talking to. Well, that changed when I actually moved here and wasn't just visiting as a tourist. I lived with Americans and had all aspects of my life take place in this country, which inevitably led to me understanding the culture more and more. I sometimes like to compare understanding a culture to understanding a language. It really takes a while to understand and interpret the culture as an outsider.
And being 10 days in Germany, certainly didn't understand the culture by any stretch. But this is why I do these videos and with Feely from Germany, Passport 2 and things like that, is I want to learn about how things are around the world, how we see things. That's what's fascinating. That's why these videos are so good to me.
It's like learning a language of customs and behavioral patterns and reading between the lines, and then eventually being able to speak that language too and communicate with those same cultural tools. And getting back to what I said earlier about language learning, of course, the better you speak the local language, the easier it'll be to pick up on those subtle nuances and hidden meanings, and realize that you can't always translate everything literally into your native language. You have to consider the cultural translation there too. So when an American says that the business presentation was okay, you most likely wouldn't translate that to okay in German, but it would probably be more like pretty bad in German. But when a German says it was okay, you might translate it to decent or even good in American English, because Americans usually try to express things a little nicer than they actually were to protect everyone's feelings, while Germans can be pretty direct, and to them even the phrase "you can't complain about that, da kann man nicht meckern" can be a pretty big compliment. So in addition to learning a language, as in the vocab and the grammar when you live abroad, you also kind of have to learn how everyday life works in the country. How you treat each other, how you behave in business situations, how you eat, what to respond to, how are you, what's expected of you at a birthday party, and so on.
And there are clearly pluses and minuses for both. There's pluses and minuses for things that people like. Like one of the things that we talk about and then not just Germany but in Europe is the free refill thing from the United States. Because in the United States and in Germany, when I got a drink, it was neat. It was no ice in it at all. I was used. Where's the ice? The ice always comes in a soft drink. And that even in McDonald's, if you sit in a McDonald's and you get a they'll just give you a cup, you fill it with ice and you can get as many refills as you want. That's not how it's done in Germany or Europe. That's a difference of how things are done in a different country. That's something you got to live with. It's minor, but it's important to understand. That's how things are done, because you could understand if an American goes over there and isn't aware of this, gets their drink, and all of a sudden they want to know, where's my refill? No free refills. You got to pay for another drink. It's different. It's different in understand. It's different to learn. It's different. You got to understand.
Which can be kind of tricky, especially when you compare one Western culture to another, because those differences can be very subtle and hard to grasp sometimes. But for me, once I was more immersed in the everyday life in the US, I started to get some of these things more and realized that the things that I used to consider fake aren't actually that fake. It's just a different way of communicating. So to get back to the initial question, after a while, I understood that people here are just more open to sharing personal stories with others, even if they hardly know them, and that many of them just really enjoy talking to strangers, even if it's just a brief conversation in the checkout line, or at a football game, or even in a parking lot. I understood that the waiter probably does think that being from Germany is really cool, but that they also exaggerate a little because they have to rely on tips so much. But most importantly, I understood that the message behind a lot of these things is usually real. The interest is real. The nice thought when a stranger gives me a compliment for my coat is real. I just had to learn to understand the different layers of it all, and also how to respond to it.
And, look, again, he says went to Paris and had a great time there, even though Paris is not in Germany and everything like that. But, we did consider going to Paris when I was in Germany. I think it was like from Frankfurt, I think it was like a 4-hour train trip. We did consider doing that. So, but yeah, it really is interesting when you look at it from different perspectives. When you take a look, when you actually experience it for a certain amount of time how things actually work out and how she is responding to what I said earlier. That's just Americans. Sometimes like to do that. There are a lot of people who like to have conversations with people out in the middle of nowhere to say, it's just, what are you doing? Okay, what are your plans? They're genuinely curious about it.
How to handle American small talk on my end. But once I did, I actually started to appreciate a lot of it, and still do to this day. So, long story short, I still understand why many Germans think that Americans are fake, and why they prefer the German direct and honest way of handling things. So if you're one of those Germans, I totally know what you mean. But I do think that you can't really judge it until you understand the culture better, and once I understood it, I personally liked it a lot, and I even miss the American friendliness now whenever I'm in Germany. Don't get me wrong, there are still situations sometimes where the German in me feels like the other person is being pretty fake, and this conversation is super unnecessary, but that's really the exception. Most of the time, I genuinely enjoy talking to strangers now, and just making each other stay better by being friendly to each other, and maybe telling a stranger that you like their sweater, or having a fun conversation about the new Taylor Swift album with the waitress. These conversations are a lot less binding than they would be in Germany. They're just casual little interactions that make life a little better, but that doesn't make them straight up fake. As you can probably tell, I could keep rambling about this forever, but I actually wanted to mention a second assumption that I had, and that turned out to be wrong. This is something that I didn't mention in my stereotype list from earlier, because I'm not quite sure if this is a super common stereotype, but I think just based off American high school movies and things like that, I always thought that Americans are a little more judgy and cliquey than Germans. You know, that the athletes only talk to other athletes, and that there is a...
Yeah, have you ever watched those high school movies, especially ones in the 80s? That was a bunch of... I don't know what... those high schools were somewhere out in California or wherever they were, and I just never really related to them. I mean, maybe some of the John Hughes movies like Breakfast Club and that were okay, but really I don't know what high school those people were from. It was like fantasy high school for most of the part.
There's a lot of pressure here to have these perfect white teeth that everyone has, and that people judge each other for their appearance, but my personal experience here in Ohio, in the Midwest, is actually almost the exact opposite. I quickly realized that Germans are...
Yeah, exactly. If you ever watch, I've only watched high school portrayals in the United States from movies, you don't really get an idea of what high school is really like. It's a little bit different.
Actually a lot more judgy than the people I met here, and that the whole concept of Leben und Leben lassen, so minding your own business, is much more prevalent here. Maybe that's just the bubble that I found myself in here, but whether it was at college or in my friend groups, I was surprised to find a very accepting environment from the beginning. I hardly ever hear anyone talk bad about someone else's appearance, and even fat shaming is something that I don't think I've experienced so far. I mean, I'm sure it does exist, but in my experience, it happens a lot less here than it does in Germany. In fact, I did experience that kind of behavior sometimes, but that was always when I was in groups with lots of Germans and other Europeans. But with Americans, at least here in the Midwest, I'm sure it's different in other places, I never worry about being judged for the way I dress, for example. Like, I could go to the grocery store in my pajamas right now and it would be fine. And
nobody's going to say anything about any... Look, I've seen crazy people wearing crazy outfits and all things like that. I generally don't say anything like that. People generally just let those people be. It's not worth getting into a argument or something like that, or say, hey, look at, or staring at them, or, well, you look all crazy. It's just not like that. It's people are what people are. Depends on where you are too.
I know this because people actually do that. And you know what? It's rubbed off on me too, which I really like, because in Munich, I would have thought to myself, oh my god, what is this person in the pajamas doing at the store? But here, I don't even think about it, and I think that's how it should be. Also, when I first came here, I was surprised that in my college classes, the athletes and the nerds and the cheerleaders and the weird new girl from Germany all got along for the group projects, and that everyone always tried to respectfully communicate with each other and actually work as a team. Now, maybe I'm exaggerating a little, but since I expected something pretty different, that really impressed me. And one thing that I love the most about all of this is that it's so incredibly easy to combine friend groups here. Back in Germany, for let's say a birthday party or a birthday dinner, I would always have to make sure to kind of get the different friend groups to talk to each other or initiate some kinds of conversations for them. Or some people also have different parties for different friend groups for that reason. But ever since I came to Cincinnati, that has never been an issue. Even if it's the two most different people in the world, Americans seem to always find something to talk about or something they have in common.
Yeah, I mean, I never had problems, really major problems in high school when it came to talking to different people, and from different shades. You know, there are people, groups or friends like that. But as you got older, and then you went to college, those things just went away. I mean, so my senior year in high school, I talked with everybody. I was on the local football club or local high school soccer team. But the soccer players and the football players, there was no big argument between us or anything like that. There was no argument really between the nerds. You had groups and cliques and things like that, but everything, for the most part, was all civil. Everybody pretty much got along.
Common and even appreciate each other for having different interests. Not so much when it comes to politics. That's something that will get people to never talk to each other again in this country.
Now, back in the day, that's true now, okay? But back in the day when I was growing up, if you had different political opinions, you just had different political opinions. There was a guy in class who was a Democrat. I was a Republican. Not so much anymore. If I were to talk about my politics right now or bring up my politics, which I'm not going to do, I am more conservative than I am liberal. That much is true. But he and I got along great. Okay, we would just sometimes we'd talk politics, but we would very rarely discuss. We talk other things. There's other things worth. But nowadays, she's right. If you're a Republican and there's a Democrat, you probably don't fraternize too much anymore, or it depends on how big you are, because a lot of in your beliefs or how dedicated you are, because it's actually sad that it's gotten that way, because that's backwards in my opinion. You should be able to talk about your own political beliefs without losing a friend, and that shouldn't be the sole purpose of what makes you just have a conversation is politics. I don't like this guy because his politics. That's horrible. You should never be like that. You should always be willing to talk politics.
But
or at the very least, avoid talking politics and talk about other things.
When it comes to music or hobbies, sports, jobs, and those kinds of things, I just love how open-minded many Americans are. There have been so many times when two people who never met each other before just bonded over a topic, and where it feels like a group of people that didn't really know each other before has an amazing time together. While in Germany, everyone would probably just talk to the person they came with. I've also been on more than one group vacation here where some of the people had never met each other until that first vacation day, but you usually don't have to worry about it. To kind of come full circle here, I think that this also goes back to the whole small talk topic I talked about earlier, and also to the fact that Americans are just a little more individualistic than Germans and don't judge each other as much for standing out or for being different. Okay.
And sometimes when you go on a vacation with somebody you've never been with before, the things you don't talk about are the things that you're gonna, you don't talk about politics, you don't talk about religion, which are two subjects you should always avoid, as my father always said. What you talk about is just, he's friends with this guy and this guy, I'm friends with them, we're both friends. All of a sudden you have a conversation, start talking, and you hit it off, you talk about other things, it's great. It usually works out that way.
I don't think I managed to keep this video under 10 minutes yet again. I'm just going to try and do better next time. Again, please remember that these are my personal experiences and that everyone has different experiences with these topics, so it's really hard to generalize any of it. If you would like to share your stories and opinions, please feel free to do so in the comments below. The next Ask German video will be out in a couple days, so 2 or 3 days, I'm not quite sure yet. Until then, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell.
Yeah, subscribe this was great. Subscribe to Feely from Germany, as well as for me. Just please click down there. I would appreciate it. It would really help me out a whole lot as I'm trying to build my channel. But have a good rest of your day. Thanks for watching, and have a good day.